Would you like to introduce yourself? Just say who you are.
Ruella Frank, New York City, friend of
Mhm.
Heather.
Um, and how would you say, I think I've asked you something similar to this before, but it might pop something else up. How would you say that Gestalt therapy has affected you as a person?
The first thing that comes to mind that I found a home, and I found that the idea of a lack of normal behavior and that what's normal for you is normal, um, a great respect of the individual, and an understanding of how we make with another person, that I take responsibility, as much responsibility as you, for this interview, and allowing myself to find the ground on which I stand so that I can clearly feel my difference with you and also respect that difference of both of us. I think that's, those are words, but I feel that in my body. I feel my capacity to yield with you, to be with you, and to separate from you and include you in my experience. And, and that's been really important. Um, and also to be able to just a clarity of presence of who I am in relation to you, so that I don't have to, when you disagree or you even insult me, I don't have to feel like it doesn't hit such a deep personal wound.
Okay. Well, a little bit more sort of around you in Gestalt would be um, what would have been one of your more challenging moments around Gestalt therapy?
Um, when Jean-Marie Robin said he wanted to study with me.
Okay, what happened then?
I so adore and respect Jean-Marie Robin, and I was so intimidated by the thought that he would come. And it took me many years to build confidence to, especially when he asked me to teach with him, I thought, what? Why? And so it took me a long time to build up the confidence to be able to relate to him more as a colleague. But, and it helped to be able to talk to Michael Miller here in New York, because I also have great respect for him. And Dan Bloom also here in New York. It took me a while to be able to find my footing with those friends in Gestalt.
And I'm interested now. This is not one of our questions, but I'm curious. I'm curious, and it's about how you experienced being a woman in the Gestalt therapy culture in the US, just over the course of your career, over the course of your lifetime. I mean, how has it been, being who you are as a woman?
Mixed, and I was going to say, this leads me to share a dream.
Okay.
Um, so I had this repetitive dream for a while in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, I think, maybe 2003, 2004. I'm sitting at a table, it's a long table with white tablecloth, and there are chairs on either side. And they're all men, they're sitting in dark suits and white shirts, and I'm the only woman. And they're talking to each other, and I can't get a word in edgewise. And then I wake up. And this
Hmm.
dream was repetitive for years. And then finally, the last dream I have, I'm sitting at a table, white tablecloth, men on either side in dark suits and white shirts, and they're talking to each other. And I get up on the table and I say, I have something to say. And the dream ends, and it never came back. So I think I had to work very hard on the clarity of what I was saying in order to be able to come out and say, I have something to say. But now, after many years, and it took me many years, I can say I have something to say. So writing this book is a lot easier because I have said in different words what I'm now saying now. And it's fun, actually.
Well, one of the other questions that we do have, and it's interesting to ask it in this time. I mean, doing these interviews was something that we'd been thinking about before um, the public, at least, was aware that the coronavirus existed. But one of the things that we were going to ask is what you see happening with Gestalt or with psychotherapy in the future. And that may even be different now with what we're going through as a society. I don't know. But however you'd like to answer that, I'm curious
I'm answering
what
this
you
from
think.
my perspective, of course. But in writing this book now, one of the things that I was sharing with Donna Orange, the book, and she said we really need that now, especially during this time, because it's about finding yourself, wondering about yourself. Even when you're online with someone, how do we wonder about ourselves and not focus here, but feel the larger experience of my body in this room and the volume of this room that's part of my lived experience and with you online. So I think, and kinesthesia, the quality of our feelings and movement is now being discussed in a larger um, world. I read phenomenologists like Fuchs and Maxine Sheets Johnson, of course, and Zahavi and others that are mentioning moving and the qualities of moving in the ways that they mention them as being important to human experience, the developing of human experience, and as being important to diagnosis. So from my perspective, I think that this is where we're moving towards an understanding of movement. And of course, there are people bringing the depth of phenomenology into Gestalt studies and philosophy, which is brilliant and an opening, and they're getting more clear. Dan Bloom, Jean-Marie, Michael Miller, on how to, and others, on how to integrate phenomenology and the understandings of Husserl and Heidegger and Brentano into the world now, Merleau-Ponty. So that interests and excites me, and we're sharing so much more, I think, with intersubjectivists and psychoanalysts in that way.
Right. Well, that brings me back to a dream. Do you remember when I shared with you over email that you had started a foundation, or I don't remember who started it, if it was you or me, but it was using the kinesthetic relational development with displaced people to heal relational trauma. And just because part of what we're societally living through is just so much disconnection from origin, from stability, from those basic fundamentals.
Absolutely.
That something has to happen to be able to heal that. There has to be a way. Otherwise, I don't understand how people will function. People will dysfunction.
This next wave that you're talking about, where people are looking at people recovering from those kinds of disconnections, not just here, because we'll suffer from that, but in leaving their countries and trying to find world in another country and the refugees. And yeah, absolutely. But then they have to start from the ground of experience, which is moving feeling, which is the basis of any kind of attaching, contacting.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, like I'm having that experience as I'm trying to speak with you, and I'm lacking a common ground. I mean, I've spent 3 days in New York in my entire life, and I think I have some kind of reference to your world, but I really don't. And I've spent maybe like what, maybe 6, 7 days in total in the same physical space as you in my entire life. And I don't have that common story or that common ground. And so the work that you do and the sort of ways, paths that you offer for people to begin to connect to one another make a lot of sense to me, because it comes with feeling your way into a new relationship in new territory, not just knowing or having a preconceived idea of. It actually requires that there be this physical process of connection.
It requires coming back to the capacity to wonder our experience, which is different than being curious about in my vernacular. It's wondering is staying with the feeling of, whether it's with your eyes or your chest or your abdomen, staying with the feeling of me with you, without the curiosity of figuring it out, what to do with me with you. That comes later. But Heather, this is your dream, and it's probably psychic in a way. So you should stay with it. I'm happy to be of any kind of service in helping you.
Well, I should probably go train with you. I should probably do that at some point.
Well, you were invited. It didn't quite happen, but yes, definitely. Definitely. Should we come offline?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
That's another thing.
Eventually the world will let us out.
I'm trying to put these trainings online, and that's going to be a real challenge. But we have to rise to it. That's what's happening.
Yeah. And I mean, if this conversation is any indication, there's something about the way that you are that allows that to happen. So it's going to be an interesting time, I'm sure. But anyways, that's just a teaser, for your upcoming courses. So is there anything else that you'd like to add? I mean, this is really just an attempt to get to know you as a person.
You did my first interview. Oh, it was such a nice time in California. And I look back on those days and I think, what a different world we lived in. We were sitting in the sun and the wind was blowing, and I had just met you and you were interviewing me. And I thought, it was such a lovely exchange in time, and you were so kind.
I thought the same thing. And I had the total opposite of your Jean-Marie experience. I didn't mention, the people that I was sitting down and speaking to and meeting for the first time. But I have much more respect the more I get to know you. So.
Oh, thank you. I think one thing people don't know is I'm extraordinarily shy. So, so to come forward and teach, it's the material that brings me forward. But at a party or meeting people, or for the first time, that's a different story. So that's one thing that people maybe don't know about me or couldn't even imagine.